What's going on, everybody? Greg Peters here with the Car Passion channel, and today we're going to be upgrading the Turbo Miata. Here we go, but come on in, let me show you guys how easy it actually is to swap the spring out. Turbo and the air coming out of the turbo, or the pre-compressed air and the air that's already been. I'll be showing you guys the differences between the stock Borg-Warner recirculation valve and my new Turbosmart Kompact recirculation valve. Now, for those of you that don't know, the turbo that's on the Miata has what's called a recirculation valve or a diverter valve. And instead of like a traditional blow-off valve where you let off the throttle and it lets all your excess boost free into the atmosphere, a diverter valve actually lets it circulate within the compressor housing, so when you get back on the throttle, you have some of that boost left, and that's what helps the Borg-Warner turbo spool up so quickly between shifts. Now, I've wanted to get one of these Turbosmart valves since I put the car together, but the stock one's been working fine and it was kind of a back burner item. I recently decided to hit up Turbosmart and see if they'd be willing to sponsor one of their valves for my build, and they said yes. So I just got this box. I'm gonna crack it open and show you guys what's inside, and then I'll pull the stock diverter valve off the Miata so we can look at them side by side, and I'll explain some of the differences between them and explain why you might want to upgrade to a Turbosmart unit. Oh, we got the swag pack, boys. I guarantee I will get something on this by the end of the video. All right, so let's get past the tortilla and into the al pastor of this taco. There we go. Oh, it's so cute. So here is the Turbosmart Kompact recirc valve. Now, they also do this in a 50-50 recirc blow-off where half the air recircs into the turbo and half blows off. I think that's in use maybe for like really high boost applications. This one's full recirc. It also comes with a 90-degree fitting that's easily swapped out for the straight fitting. A lot of people are using the Borg-Warner turbos in custom applications, so it might make it easier to run your vacuum lines. Removing the recirc valve from your Borg-Warner is fully dependent on how hard it is to get to your turbo. Mine, fortunately, is incredibly easy. Just gotta move my intake to the side and pull the 3 10mm bolts. First, I'll crack them loose, and then as I loosen them, I like to hold the recirc valve in place because on the design of the stock one, the spring tension pushes up on the cover, so it will put like a little bit of load on the threads, so we don't want to cause any damage as the bolts come out, or we don't really want anything to fly away either. Once you get those loose, and don't let anything fall into the turbo. So I can immediately see there's a big design difference between the stock valve and the Turbosmart. The stock valve uses one giant rubber diaphragm. What seals it is just tightening the plastic cover down against the compressor housing, and it just kind of pinches that diaphragm in there. You can see this kind of just all comes apart. And then the stock one uses the compressor housing as the valve, and this whole thing is just a seal. I'm going to show you guys what I mean in a second, actually on the car. The Compact has 2 O-rings. This outer O-ring seals the valve inside the compressor housing, and then the inner O-ring is actually what seals the boost inside of the compressor area of the housing. And when it's time for it to do its job and open, the boost will go into this port right here and escape through the side ports. And this thing's got a much stiffer spring as well. You can see I can actuate it with my hand there, but compared to this, I mean, this honestly feels like a pen spring. And one thing that I thought was really cool is when I was ordering this valve, Turbosmart was asking me if I could find out what my vacuum level at idle is and what my maximum vacuum is, so they could spec the correct stiffness of spring inside this valve, so it legitimately is like a tuned recirc valve. And just by looking at how different the design is and noting the difference in how stiff the springs are, I don't think these valves are going to sound the same at all, which is why I'm going to put the stock valve back in, hook up the external mic, and try to get you guys some good footage. Then I'll install the Turbosmart and we can look at the sounds back to back. So since I did such a crappy job explaining how these things work on the bench, I'm going to try to show you on the actual turbo. This is the stock diverter valve right here. The plunger really is the main part of this. So the spring holds it in place like that. And then when you let off the throttle, vacuum pulls the plunger back. So what you really have to know is the compressor has two parts. It's separated by the air coming into the turbo and the air coming out of the turbo, or the pre-compressed air and the air that's already been compressed. So that compressor wheel, which you can see in there, compresses the air, and then it goes down into the intercooler piping and into your motor. But when you have to release that air, a normal blow-off valve will just be, you know, somewhere on the intake pipe and just blow off that air. But a recirc valve plugs that hole that you see way in there, and that's where the compressed air lives, inside of that hole. And then when the plunger moves back, it opens up that portal into this bigger area, and then the air goes from there, and then this is the magic part. See that little tiny port inside the compressor inlet? If you can imagine the boosted air, once the valve opens, it starts going in a circle. The compressor wheel sucks it in, like it's ready to be compressed, but then it just comes right back out of that port and it goes in a continuous loop. So now that you have a better idea of how that works, you can see that the compressed boost air will come through this port, and then when the valve opens up, it lets it into this bigger chamber, and then it just goes in a loop inside the compressor housing, and then as soon as you touch the throttle, that valve shuts and it seals up that boosted air and it lets it go back into the motor. All right, I've got the stock valve installed again, and for your visual and audio pleasure, what I'll do is every different scenario I can think of where that valve makes a different noise. I've got my list of items here, and I'll put each thing on the screen with what I'm doing. Now you'll notice one of the things on my list is called bird whistle. Ever since I put this setup together, Dad Borg-Warner has made this whistling sound, and it's like not a good sound. I would not consider it a cool turbo sound. It's more of an annoying, almost like eBay blow-off valve whistling. I'm really hoping that the Turbosmart valve eliminates this noise, and I think it completely will, because from the reviews I've read, this thing's supposed to sound pretty cool, so let's check it out. know there's a lot of internet experts out there that are gonna tell me that I'm gonna blow up my turbo from the flutter, but Turbosmart actually recommended the stiffer spring for the amount of vacuum that this engine pulls. Now, it's really more important on a blow-off valve because you don't want that thing to open at idle, and you know, you don't want to stay open too long when you shift because it can actually suck dirt in, which will go straight into the turbo. But this being a recirc, it doesn't matter if it's open a little bit more often, and I like the softer spring, the way it sounds a little bit better. It's still got some flutter, which I think it sounds cool, and at lower boost levels is not gonna hurt anything. And guys, the Turbosmart Compact Valve was actually co-designed with Borg Warner for their own turbo. They're not gonna make something that's gonna break their own turbo. So you guys chill. I'm mad 240 zip tie racer spec now, so we're just good to go. But come on in, let me show you guys how easy it actually is to swap the spring out. So you come on down to your valve. You don't even have to take it off the turbo to change the spring. You just unthread it, pop in your new spring. You can do it with your bare hands if you are the Hulk, but since everything is 18 million degrees, I'm gonna use my rag. And you just unthread. I'll show you, I'll burn myself real quick. You just unthread this. You're gonna unthread it. As it gets closer to the end of the threads, I push it towards the turbo so it doesn't strip that top thread. Then the top comes off just like that. Your spring comes out, also burning hot. Put the piston in. I'm gonna put the other softer spring in there. And then you wanna push it on. Make sure it is nice and straight when you start threading it. Doesn't have to be super tight because the threads are aluminum. That's it. Softer springs back in. All right guys, well that is all I have for you on the Turbosmart Compact Diverter Valve. I tried to explain everything the best I could, but some of it's sort of complicated. So if you do have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you learned something, leave a like. I will see you in the next one, and thank you once again, Turbosmart, for sending me this valve. I am stoked on how it sounds. And I'm stoked knowing that thing is not gonna blow apart, considering I'm basically running this turbocharger at maximum power. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Hey guys, me again. So now that I've actually had the valve installed for a couple weeks, there are some things that I noticed that I didn't initially share with you. Number one, the Tweety Bird noise is gone, so that's a win. Number two is kind of a drivability thing. The stock valve has a spring that is so light, as soon as you cross into any vacuum at all, the valve opens. And when you're just cruising on the freeway, barely accelerating, 1 or 2 psi, and you let off the throttle a tiny bit and you go into a little bit of vacuum, you actually feel the valve open, and you can hear it open, and you feel a little bit of a loss of power. And same thing when you're cruising and you're just in a little bit of vacuum and you barely squeeze the throttle to where you cross over into boost, the valve seals up and you feel a little bit of a surge of power because the air goes from, you know, recirculating inside the compressor to, as soon as that valve seals, it pushes some of it into the motor. With a stiffer spring that the Compact has, you don't experience that at all because the valve is not opening right when you go into vacuum, it's opening when the engine goes into a higher level of vacuum. So let me show you these two clips back to back that's going to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. Makes the drivability in that area a lot nicer. So anyways, I just want to make sure I threw that information in this video, and I will really see you in the next one. Peace out. But another...
Just wants to shoot the outro.
Funny story on this one. Decided to take my car out anyways, even though I'm not supposed to, so I could get these last couple clips that I've been trying to get forever for this video. So my brother's helping me film the outside spots, and we're pulled over on the side of the road. Totally different spot, by the way. And San Diego police shows up, and they stop right there and block me into my spot.
I said, yep, getting my car taken away for sure this time. They just stopped there. They wanted to give that box truck a parking ticket who wasn't legally parked, and they took off. And then they went and harassed that Mustang over there. So got lucky on that one.